The learning is Illa Nishmas Etta Ahuva bas Yaakov. Masechet Nedarim Perek Daled Mishna Beis. Hamoider Hano Mechavera. If someone, Reuben, makes a neder that Shimon can't have Hano from him, he could still be mahana him in one of three ways. The Mishnah says, Shoikel es shikloi. If Shimon is chayiv in machzas hashekel, then Reuven could pay that on behalf of him. And the reason is, the Rab brings down, is because he's only doing him a mitzvah, so it's not considered as if he's giving him a direct hana. Poireya es chayvai. If Shimon owed money to Levi, so Reuven could pay back that loan on Shimon's behalf. And the Gemara over here has two tzadim. Either the reason is because it's called Mavriach Ari. He's not giving him a direct hana. He's just chasing away a lion from him. In other words, he's settling his debt that he owed. Or the other Gemara says that it's talking about a case that Shimon had told Levi that I don't have to pay you. So technically, he was in no rush to go ahead and pay him. And Reuven went ahead and paid that chayiv earlier on his behalf. So it's not considered a hana. And the third case, the Mishnah says, is that Reuven could return an aveda to Shimon if Shimon lost an aveda. And the Gemara over here has two tzadim, whether this is true even in the case where Shimon is not allowed to have hana from Reuven. The tzad that it's mutter is because at the end of the day, it's Shimon's own object, just he had lost the object. So he's not giving him something new that Shimon never had before. It was something that was always Shimon. He's returning what was already Shimon's from before. That's what the Gemara says. The Mishnah ends off, Makom shenoitlin aleha schar, in a place where someone who returns an object to someone else would get paid. The minig of the place was that person would get paid. So over here, we're talking about, the Rav speaks out that they each had hana, that they each had a neder, they're not going to have hana from the other one. So you're stuck with a dilemma over here. If he pays him, so it comes out he's giving him hana, and if he doesn't pay him, so then he's having hana that he's not paying him. So the Mishnah says, like a pshar in between way, tipo hana lehegdish. You should pay the money to hegdish. Mishnah Gimel. Mishnah Gimel continues with other ways that if Reuven made a neder that Shimon can't have hana from his property, he could still do certain things for him. You could give off his truma and his meiser for him. So l'daita, it's mavur that in the Gemara that you can't do it shaloi l'daita. You need to have his das. But it also, the Gemara says, can't be that Shimon told Reuven, go ahead and give it for me, because that would be considered direct hana. Gemara says the case is that he says, whoever wants to go ahead and give truma on behalf of me should go ahead and give it. So in that case, it's an indirect hana, it's mutter. The same thing, similarly, makriv aleh kine zavim, kine zavis, kine yoldes. If the mudar was mechuyev in these karbanos, so then the mother could give them on behalf of him, chatois v'ashamis. And the Mishnah continues with another halacha that you're allowed to give hamana. Melamdei medrash halachas v'agadis. You could teach him. Reuven could teach Shimon Torah Shebal Peh. He could teach him Mishna Yomi. Avalo yilamdenu mikra, but you're not allowed to teach him mikra. Why? Because mikra is something that you're allowed to take schar for. So if you're teaching him Torah Shebal Peh, so there's no schar, so the only thing is I'm giving him hana, so we say mitzvahs lav lehenes no. But if you're teaching him mikra for free, and that's something that the derech was that you would pay schar, and the reason is, the Gemara says, tu pshatim, either Rabbi Yochanan says because you're paying him for the schar pisek timing, to know where to stop, you're not teaching him for the actual Torah, or Rav says because it's like a babysitting, schar shimur, so since the minig was you would take schar, that you can't teach him. If it's schar shimur, then the Gemara says dafka by a katan that you can't teach him. Ava malamid hu vanav es benoisa mikra, but if he's a gadol, you could teach him, and you could teach his children mikra. The Rav again says over here because mitzvah lav lehenes nitna. The Mishnah continues. V'zanish ishay v'ezbanav aval pi shel chayv v'zaynisayim. You're allowed to feed this mother's wife and his children, even though you're saving him money because he would be chayiv to feed them. So the Ran explains because he's feeding them b'toiras mitzvah, and this separate hana that he doesn't have to feed them, that's considered hana de memela, and that's mutter. The last halacha of the Mishnah is lo yazan es behemtai bein tameya bein tayri. You're not allowed to feed his animal. Rabbi Eliezer oimer zan es hatameya vein zan es hatayri. You could feed his non-kosher animals that aren't edible. So the Mishnah continues with the reasoning. Amar loy ma bein tameya l'tayri. Either way, you're giving him hana if you're feeding his animals. Amar lahem. So Rabbi Eliezer explained his reasoning why dafka a tameya is mutter and not a tahira. Because shatayra nafsha l'shamayim v'gufa shaloi. After you shecht it and it goes l'shamayim, the animal is going to be eaten by him. So that's a direct hana. Mashenkein tmeya nafsha v'gufa l'shamayim. After it's dead, there's no hana to the mudder. Amr lois l'cham said afa tmeya nafsha l'shamayim v'gufa shaloi. There is a hana to the mudder because when a behemoth tmeya is dead, he could still have hana with it. How could he do with it? He can't eat it, but he could sell it to goyim or feed it to his dogs. The Ran explains in the Shita of Rabbi Eliezer that you are allowed to feed his behemoth tameis because those he's not eating, he's only using them on the field. You're still not allowed to feed them the basics because that is also beneficial to him because now that his animal has food, he's going to be able to work better. What you're allowed to feed him is the extra amount that's going to make him into a fat animal, which is that extra eating is only good if you're going to eat the animal. But for the working, if I cared, a fat behemoth is not good to work with. So that would be the only thing that would be mutter.